The left will never stop their agenda to take over America. You are their enemy, and they will not negotiate. Prepare yourselves. Welcome to the Blue Shark Show with your host, Mike Lang.
To particularly say that you're going to start a new Republican Party.
You're out of order, Mr. Biggers. I'm speaking.
I'm not
Sheriff,
going anywhere.
remove him. Remove him from the court.
Anyway.
Mr. Eagle would have been fragged if he'd been in Vietnam.
People, you have to go watch the January 6th, 9th, and 10th of meetings of the Commissioner Court, Hood County. Go to the YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, Hood County Commissioner Court, and watch the YouTube videos for yourself. The judge is out of control. And I tell you what, January 6th, the big insert, the judge is going after the Republican Party of Hood County. And the January 6th, 9th, and 10th meetings, go watch it. We're going to put a little bit of the 9th and 10th meeting in here, and it is just unbelievable what your Hood County judge, Judge Ron Massingill, is doing. And today in the studio, we have Nate Criswell. Nate, how you doing?
Good, Mike. Glad to be here. And, you're right. Judge Massingill is kind of unironically starting a insurrection against the Republican Party that really got kicked off on January 6, 2023.
You're right, it did. And folks, like I say, please go watch it for yourself. We're going to play a little bit of what happened between Steve Biggers, the GOP chair, and the judge. And actually, the sheriff, Roger Deeds, was there. And also in the studio, we have Commissioner Dave Eagle. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Mike. Glad to be here and see if we can do a post-game analyzation of this particular these three courts. It might be fun today.
Yeah, I'd like to get that deal where we can do the lines, and draw little circles and arrows.
Like John Madden.
Yeah, the old
Rest
John
in
Madden.
peace, yeah.
So let's get into this, and let's show a clip here of the GOP chair, Steve Biggers, and the Hood County judge, Ron Massingill, going at it.
Section 8 of the Bill of Rights in the Constitution.
So we have
freedom of
Steve
speech
Biggers
for
at the
every
mic,
person, no
and
laws
he's going
prohibited
over
that.
what he wanted to say.
So, once again,
And if you
back
want
in
to see the whole
November,
thing, go to the YouTube channel.
There was a recording of an open mic between Commissioner Wilson, Judge Massingill, and
Okay,
Pastor
Mr.
Dan.
Biggers, you're out of order.
This is Biggers'
the
second or
rules
third time trying to
of
play
this
that recording.
Commissioner's Court.
Third,
I'm
I
gonna play
think.
this,
It
Judge.
is not the intention of
Here
the
is
Hood
that
County
recording.
Commissioner's Court. You're out of order, Mr. Biggers. I'm speaking. I'm the presiding officer.
I know you are.
I'm the king.
My time, sir.
To provide a public forum for the demeaning of any individual group.
The demeaning.
Say, Judge, you don't
Neither-
know what I'm going to say.
You're out of order, please,
I will
sir.
continue with my 5
I know
minutes.
what you're going to say. I've listened to the Blue Shark and I've heard the recording.
Hey, thanks for the
He's
plug.
yeah, he's
Yeah. Maybe he needs to listen a little closer.
the recording.
You decided to particularly say that you're going to start a new Republican Party.
This
So
is...
we are going to chat
Sheriff,
about this.
Sheriff.
I am not complying,
You're out of
Judge.
order.
I have 5
And I'm
minutes.
gonna have you go-
I'm-
Mr. Wizard, come get him.
and I'm going to
The
speak to
rules
this.
of this court is that it is
They're not even being violated. And listen to the judge.
Citizens
not
on the
provide a
matters that are not
public
on the
forum for the
agenda are
demeaning
invited
of
to
any
speak
individual
and
group.
scheduled.
Neither is
Texas
it the
Constitution
intention of the
120
This is your Hood County judge.
to
that
insult
we can redress
the
our
insult-
elected officials.
Shenanigans.
Judge.
Judge, you're the judge. He's the sheriff.
He got flustered on that.
From this court.
You're going to take me out in handcuffs this time because I'm not going to go.
Good for him.
And I'm going to,
And see, Sheriff knows it's not right for him to get kicked out either.
once again, Sheriff,
It's
Sheriff, I'm
not-
staying. I'm staying. I got
No.
5 minutes. I'm staying. I told you last week I will not comply with this. I have an opportunity to speak. You voted on
You
these rules.
can't insult
You
the
don't-
honest.
And insult. The sheriff brought him out last 2 times, didn't he?
You don't know what I'm going to say. I'm going to say facts and figures about my...
Roger's sitting there going, why did I come in today?
The judge already ordered, so-called ordered, him to take him out.
Well, we'll see tonight while we have...
Kind of shows you the judge is losing control.
Yes. And Roger knows he's got his constitutional right.
At 48, and I'm
No,
going to
you don't.
continue.
You do not have anything.
I'm not going.
Sheriff,
I'm not going anywhere.
remove
Roger.
him. Remove him from
So
the court.
anyway,
Judge said to remove him. gave the sheriff an order to move him.
Adamantly,
Sheriff did not.
Remove him,
absolutely.
Sheriff.
Good for you, Roger.
Remove him from the court.
And it's debatable whether the judge has that unilateral
Yes.
authority.
You tell me what I've said to insult the
He doesn't.
integrity of anyone.
Hadn't stopped him before.
You tell me what I've said to insult the integrity. I'm dealing with a recorded conversation that you had, that Commissioner Wilson
It's an official record, actually.
Yeah.
Since it's maintained by the county clerk.
Yep.
church, and the fact that we are going to address.
Nothing different than any other request.
So I'm going to sit back down at my end
Everybody
of my
knows
minute
that there's
here.
rumors to start a new Republican Party to remove you as chairman of the Republican Party because you will not have any openness. You will not have, you will not.
Come tonight.
Judge is really showing his ignorance on how the party works.
Yes.
He doesn't know. He has no clue.
18% of our meetings have been closed. 18%. The facts and figures.
18%.
To sit up here and play a recording that was done by the county clerk prior to calling this meeting to order. She is.
Because they were embarrassing comments that you guys said.
It is embarrassing between the judge and we played that on the show.
Yeah, go back and watch whatever episode it
I
was.
kicked that guy out. Holy cow. That guy there likes me so much.
You know, I'm having a total transcription of that meeting, and we're going to circulate it to all the members and all the citizens of Hood County
It's
to see
embarrassing.
exactly what's said.
You know, I might get a jump on that.
Why not play the
And be
recording today, Judge?
No.
My time's up. Thank you, gentlemen.
There you go. And he was not kicked out this time. But wait.
Jeez. Unbelievable. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. This is a constitutional court, and as
Constitutional court. He's apologizing? He should apologize for himself.
He needs to apologize to Steve, and to Steve's church is who he needs to apologize to.
And Jack, too.
we have rules that says nobody's to have rude or demeaning behavior in here, and that's what we intend to follow. That's what I intend to follow.
Was it rude and demeaning when he said all that?
It's rude and demeaning if he says it and then you play a recording of what he said. It's rude and demeaning from what he said. And he will not let Steve Biggers play that and explain to him on this county property, what's going on.
To sit up here and play a recording that was done by the county clerk prior to calling this meeting to order.
The county clerk sets her microphones out on the dais. And that is a couple of minutes, 4 or 5 minutes, whatever it is, before court. Then she sits back down. She gets all her paperwork ready for everybody that wants to come up and speak. And it's just rolling because she doesn't have time to do all that when the judge says, I order you, like the sheriff, to come up here and turn that on. That's not how it works.
Well, it's how he wants it to work because he's a control freak, but go ahead.
Yeah. She has her office that she needs to do, and that's her own office. She starts the recording, and it's the same recordings that if Kathy Cruz, and I believe Kathy Cruz has before with Hood County News, would get the audio recording that I would get as a citizen, or you or any citizen would get, that's the same one, because as soon as she turns that on, then, that's citizen property. That's government property.
It's an official government record.
So when I ask for it, that's what I get. And, when the judge and Jack sit up there on the dais in front of all these people and they talk or they whisper or whatever they want to do, they're in a public building. They're in a public place. They're elected officials, and they try to take their inadequacies and their immoral behavior and actions and try to throw it back on Katie and Steve Biggers, when in fact they said what they said. We played it before, but he does not want that played in court again because of who he is.
Well, and this is another situation where, I'm sorry, Judge, but, your knowledge of the law on wiretapping is woefully inadequate, because if the county clerk, first of all, she lays out the microphones when she comes in there. And I've looked into some wiretap cases, and Texas is a one-party state, which means, first of all, only one person has to be aware that something's being recorded. So there's number one. But the other part is, do you have a reasonable expectation of privacy? Well, where were we? We were in the central jury room in the Hood County Justice Center. So the place, there's no reasonable expectation of privacy there. You got 2 elected officials sitting up there on the dais who are being observed by people. They've got a First Amendment right to know what they're talking about. Actually, in the first place, there's a First Amendment issue here as well. What is their reason to be there? They're getting ready to have a meeting. Do they have notice? Certainly. The county clerk has just put the microphones out. They're sitting right in front of you. She's not secretly recording them. The mics are right in front of them. So I'd like to see them. I'd like to see where they're going to take this, because they're a public official in a public place. They have no reasonable expectation of privacy, and they're going to lose that one. I mean, I think if they've got the AG looking into something, the AG is just going to throw it back at them.
Well, and I think it's just political fodder at this point to say, oh, it's being investigated by the AG, because it sounds like a headline. You know, oh, the county clerk's being No. That's BS, and the judge knows it, but he's trying to do anything he can to, like you said, deflect from his shortcomings.
Yeah, it's a smoke screen. And, you know, as a judge, as a commissioner, as a state rep, when you're up on that dais, you know, I mean, you've got microphones all over, whether they're on or off. And really, I said it before, I said, if he wants to talk that way with Jack in private, and they go to lunch or they go to each other's houses, whatever they want to do, they can talk and smash and go after and do whatever they want. When they're sitting up there, that's a whole different expectation that, you know, the judge, for whatever reason, is not being an honorable man. And same with Jack on this. And this whole thing would have blown over with Steve Biggers, but instead it carries on, and it carries on to the Steve Biggers portion of the First Amendment rights. And I really think it's borderline. If the judge thinks this is an illegal recording for Katie Lang, the county clerk, doing her job and putting the microphones up there, I don't, you know, what is going to happen with the judge? He's got to be stopped at some point. I wish he would just resign, but there's got to be something, and maybe with this Rule 44, or maybe something can happen where we can end up with a new, you know, Hood County judge, because this is just getting ridiculous.
Yeah, like you said, Mike, the judge just keeps dragging this out. And we said this the first time. If he would have just let Steve Biggers play the recording, he would have played it. That would have been it. You know, the paper's not going to write about it. We might have talked about it again, but, you know, it would have been less painful for him. But now, because he continues to violate Steve's First Amendment rights, he's, again, like we said in the last show we did on this all together, he's opening up the county to a lawsuit. And, you know, he wants to talk about an investigation, but there may be a civil suit coming his way.
A couple.
Yeah,
if he keeps going the way he is,
and he may get a judicial complaint with the Texas State Judicial Board for, you know, unethical behavior as well. So he could have that coming too. I don't know. Haven't talked to Mr. Biggers about any of that, but I think you're right, Nate. The judge doesn't have one bit of problem with somebody coming up there and dissing me for 5 minutes, 8 minutes. He let one guy go for 8 minutes dissing me, and
or Katie.
It didn't seem to be too big of a problem when they were up there coming after me, and but with that said, I kind of think that our job partially is you got to sit there and take it.
Yep.
Just sit up there, take your licks. And move on.
People have a right to, you know, go up there, express their opinion, even though it may be wrong and not based in fact or truth. They still have a right to go up there and express their opinion. And that's what, you know, Jack and the judge are not used to that. They are not used to people expressing their opinion, and especially not having the last word.
Well, it's because they're not servant leaders. No. You know, they're not used
Far from it.
Yeah, they are not used to not being the one in total and complete control. You think about it, the judge, as a divorce attorney for the last, 50 years, like he likes to brag about, has been used to having the last word in a lot of things. And Jack owning his own business and being a firearms instructor, which is a, very, you got to take a lot of precautions, and I understand that, but they can't make that transition to being a servant. They can't make that transition to working for anybody but themselves, which they, continue to do.
The apology, Nate, needs to come from the judge to all the people, because that was nothing but a circus, and he didn't know what to do. Roger was standing next to Steve Biggers, the GOP chair, and he did not throw him out because Roger knew that he was not violating any rules or decorum of that court, and he has a First Amendment right to speak. However, the judge kept trying to order Roger to do that. So we definitely have a problem with the county judge not knowing what's going on with the First Amendment, with the rules of decorum, but yet he's still there.
And I think he got so used to, over the last 4 years, being able to do more or less whatever he wanted. And now with the changing of the court, the addition of Nanette Samuelson, he knows he doesn't have the votes to be a tyrant anymore.
And let's dig a little bit further into, the judge keeps talking to him. He wants, Steve Biggers to go, but yet he keeps throwing in all the stuff. And at one point, he said they wanted to redo the Republican Party because it's not open enough. That's not the true reason. The judge just wants Steve Biggers out because he's holding Steve Biggers and all the elected officials accountable to their offices and accountable to the people. And I think the fact that he was talking about 13 or 18%, Steve Biggers, was the closed meetings of the executive session, right?
And that they've had to have, correct me if I'm wrong, because of the judge. A lot of these closed meetings have been, over the last few months, discussing the censure of the judge by the Hood County Republican Party, which did go to a vote last Tuesday.
That very night, right?
That night, and only 2 out of all the precinct chairs voted against it. So it was like 13-2 or 14-2, something like that.
So the judge was censured through the Hood County Republican Party, and that moves forward up the chain to the SEC and all that, right?
Yeah, it goes up to the state level Republican Party. From the county to the state, they're going to look at it and determine if they're going to sanction the judge.
And no wonder he wants a new Republican Party, because they're not bowing down to him, and the sheriff didn't bow down to him, and the commissioner court didn't bow down to him, and he's a one-trick pony up there just going berserk.
Well, and then his partner in crime, Jack, was, quiet as a mouse over
Always.
there.
Yeah.
He didn't have anything to say about this, which was probably good on him,
right,
for keeping his mouth shut.
Well, and if you want to get into some rules and procedures, the last 12 years I've been to every state Republican convention every 2 years that's occurred since 2012. And I've been on resolution committees, and I've been participated in voting on the platform. And we go down to the state convention to vote on platform and rules. And there's a rule called Rule 44 that's been hotly debated the last at least the last three conventions over the last 6 years, about doing this very act of censuring, because there's so many rogue elected officials out there that claim they're Republican, but they don't abide by the platform. And Rule 44, they did the executive committee that night actually did a Rule 44 censure. Procedurally, they've given him notice, and he didn't even show up. And the excuse that he and some of the cronies that he's got out there is that they're going to start a new Republican Party. Well, they can't do that. I mean, they would basically undermine the rules of the party, the platform, everything else, and they would have to go to the Secretary of State. There's just no way they can do it, and yet they're out there talking like they can. And so what they're really trying to do is destroy the Republican Party that exists in this county, whether they like it or not. The people that have been voted into office have been voted into office by the voters. And next time, run a better candidate.
And, I think that's something to, thank you for pointing that out, Dave. They're talking like they want to build a new one, but we actually build a new one every 2 years. Every 2 years, there's precinct chair elections, county chair elections. And the fact of the matter is, Steve Biggers was voted in by the voters of Hood County.
And he's the highest ranking Republican official, right?
Yeah, Republican Party official. Yeah.
So, and the judge doesn't like to hear that either, because I think he likes to be the highest ranking everything, right?
Oh, he thinks he is anyway.
So you hit the nail on the head on destroy the Republican Party. Go make your own party. Go do another party, do an independent, do whatever you want to do. But destroy is a good word. Hate is another good word. And violence is, in my opinion, soon to follow from some of these people that espouse that, hey, we don't hate, we're all trying to get along. I think there's violence coming, and let me, not from our side whatsoever, but from the people that are way out there in Facebook land, and the hate that just is going and building and building. And I give you an example, and there's some groups out there in Facebook land and social media land, and here's a person that's talking about Katie Lang, and it says, "I want scalps." Isn't that what the original occupants of this land wanted? So you have statements out here that are borderline going towards violence. And I know there's a lot more statements out there, and we're going to collect a lot of them and show you where this hate is leading to.
And those are coming from the fake Republicans, right?
Yeah,
those are
the
coming
fake
from
Republicans.
the moderates. Let's all work together. But
that's
let's be violent.
Everybody says, let's work together, and we're about, hey, let's debate, let's have a great debate, get your word out there, get your opinions out there, talk about it. But when our opinions get into their little worlds, you start getting that hate. You had somebody that followed Katie Lang and over to a car wash, and she stopped. And then the police were called, and the police came over, and they said, "Oh, that's the Hood County clerk." So after that, what is this guy? And he's in the car. He's all crazy. He's dressed up in pajamas, and he goes to her business and drives down there. So you've got people that are not right mentally. You've got people in Dave in court. The other day, it was a January 9th court, when you were talking about the Upper Trinity Groundwater Conservation District. You even had a guy come in, and he was a speaker, and I'm all for people speaking and doing whatever. But when you start saying stuff like, Dave, and you wrote a letter on your own, I think, to the Upper Trinity Groundwater Conservation District, and after the vote of the Commissioner's Court for a person that had the qualifications. Well, this person that came up to speak said, hey, in Vietnam, you'd be fragged for doing that.
Behind what I consider going behind the Hood County Commission, Mr. Eagle would have been fragged if he'd been in Vietnam by his own troops.
And those are the kinds of comments that, hey, we can disagree. Dave, he could say, Dave, I believe you shouldn't have wrote that letter or whatever, or gone around, because we haven't done that in Hood County. That's not the Hood County way. But when you start saying stuff like scalping and fragging, the other side is going, in my opinion, past that hate and almost into that violent stage. And what I would say to the elected officials is, get some police reports made, whether you're in the city or county. If you're at that point and these people are getting from the hate side, and you can talk and you have your First Amendment right, but when it starts borderlining on violence, there's some problems here in Hood County.
Yeah, and that was Mike Scott that said that at the January 9th meeting. He's been around town for a long time. And from one veteran's perspective, being me, that was probably the most despicable thing he could have said at that moment, by trying to gin up his military service and then saying, by the way, Dave, if you would have been over there, you'd have been fragged. But to say that is like the ultimate, it's almost saying, if I could, I'd frag you right now. And that is absolutely despicable. There's no place for it.
He's part of the chamber for many, many years, and he went on in that same, and hey, Mike Scott, great, go up to the podium. Anybody, go up to the podium, talk to your elected officials. You have that right, and you should be able to do it. But when you're in public and you're with the chamber, you're not with the chamber anymore, but you talk about when you were there, you were supposedly apolitical.
Which is debatable.
Yeah, it's a joke. It's a lie, and I tell you why is because he was the one carrying the tripod and camera for Jim Largent, who ran against me at the Eastland debate that we had. So you can
chamber
pretend.
forums,
Yeah,
they're the good old boy forums. Let's just say it.
They
I
are.
mean,
You can pretend and do what you want. There's some great people in the chamber. Don't get us wrong, but don't go out there and say you're apolitical, because you're definitely 100% political. And that's fine.
especially
But
these days.
Don't lie about it. That's fine.
They've started. Mike Scott is very involved with a kind of new political group around here. I think they're a PAC, and it's a lot of those same people that are the ones calling for the violence.
Is that Hood County Forward?
Yeah, Hood County Communists.
They ought to call themselves the Hood County Progressives, which is pretty much what they are. And but more power to them. Form your little group or what have you. I don't know if they've filed any type of PAC paperwork or what have they.
They did during the last election.
So they're gonna start them a new Republican Party, I guess, which is, if you go look on the folks that are chiming in on it, they're all Democrats. So I'm kind of interesting to me that in this town we've got a faction who says that we're not the Republicans, but their definition of a Republican is whatever I say it is. And my definition of a Republican is someone who abides or subscribes to the Republican platform that we go down and vote on. Pretty simple.
It is. It's pretty simple, but it really, and we've talked about it on the show before, I think there's a huge disconnect between the federal, when we talk about our senators and representatives on a national level, and then our state level, and then local. And everybody can, say, hey, rah, rah, Trump on the national level. But when it comes down here, that group is, rah, rah, Massingill, when it's like, no, if you're for Trump, then if you bring down those same principles and morals and values, you're not going to be for Massingill, no matter what he's talking about. We just, showed you again and again and again part of this. And I think a lot of it stems, the destroy, the hate, the almost violence. I think a lot of that comes from the good old boys losing traction, losing ground, and on your deal on the Upper Trinity Groundwater Conservation District, Mike Scott said he was one of the founding members of that with Mike Massey and John Henry Luton.
When we started the Upper Trinity Groundwater Organization, I was one of the founding people that helped put it together, as several people in this room were. We built that organization from the ground up. We started out with Mike Massey as our representative, along with John Henry Luton.
I don't know if he mentioned any others, but was he part of that? Did you do research into 15 years ago or something? I think he was talking about.
I didn't. I never saw Mike Scott's name on it. I don't know what he was trying to take credit for, but basically, if he was part of that, it was from a peripheral sideline standpoint as a person with the Chamber of Commerce. But he made it sound like he put it together.
Well, and they get so big into the personalities, and they throw the principles aside, like you were talking about, that we espouse at the federal level, and they focus so much on the personalities, and it's like they'll look past all the times that people go against the Republican Party if it's somebody that they've got business dealings with, or someone like in Mike Scott's case that helped them secure hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer money over the years going into the chamber. I mean, it's there's the good old boys, and then there's the Republicans. And the Republicans operate on principles and the party platform, and the good old boys operate on personality, and now, moving into hatred and violence.
And I think that's kind of where it's going here in Hood County. I wish it wasn't, but they've never been challenged. The judge, of course, especially, you can see he's never been had anybody hold him accountable. He's never been an elected official and seen this aspect of it. Same with Jack Wilson. And it's hard for people like that to actually be a servant and have a servant's heart.
They're so used to being in charge, they forget who they work for, and they lose sight of what the citizens actually want.
And that's what people, enough people haven't seen that, I guess, and people get elected and reelected, and that's just the way it goes, and you can run people against them and bring things out. But until more and more people see that, and you're not going to see it through the Hood County News, because you had Kathy Cruz with the Hood County News sitting, in the audience, and there's no articles written, and there won't be.
Probably not, and if she does, it'll be in typical Hood County News fashion.
So, the news of today is just like, you've got MSNBC, you've got all that, CNN garbage, and that's what they want you to see. They don't want you to see an alternative. And the judge even mentioned Blue Shark up on, the dais. And so we're not a news media source, but we're a show, a program that comes out here and says, hey, look for yourself. These are the videos. These are the words of Steve Biggers. These are the words of Judge Massingill. These are the words of Jack Wilson. And people need to pay attention, because this is the way these people act. And this is their life. And this is what they do. And when you hold them accountable, all hell breaks loose. So people, please pay attention. Please get together with other people and watch these specific shows. These, go to YouTube, go to the Hood County channel. You don't have to just watch this, but spread our show around too. I'm glad the judge is. I think it, is a good big boost for us. So that's good.